Hey, you kids, get off my lawn. Let's see what we did. Let's see your mobile phone for initiative. Do as I say. What's up, a frowny face? Go out and play. Just like your parents did. Just like your parents did. As if your parents did.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to First Gen Gamers. I am co-host number one, Jed. Normally, at this point in time, I would introduce co-host number two, Ashley, but Ashley fell ill a day or so before our recording date, and so I scrambled and searched and got desperate because I didn't want to miss we have a new schedule. And I didn't want to miss the schedule because that schedule is on Monday. And so I found a special guest co-host. I was once a guest on her podcast. We've been in contact for years now. Absolutely fantastic lady, good podcast host, and I'm excited to have her on. Please welcome special guest co-host, Laceya.
Hi. Well, that was very sweet. Thank you for that.
And genuine, absolutely genuine. I loved being on your show back in the day, and I'm excited to finally get to return the favor.
Oh, excellent. Well, we loved having you. We loved having our friends on. And you're right. Like it's been a few years now, isn't it?
Yeah, because Super Mega Crash Bros. Turbo turned into Super Mega Crash Beyond, 3 years ago?
That's what I was trying to remember. I think for sure we did 2 seasons, so it might have been 2. I know it's all kind of blurring because I believe him and the Super Mega Crash Brothers Turbo, I kind of came into also. I guess I just kind of sneak into other people's podcasts and stick around. But 2017, 16, maybe when I came into that. Gosh, oh my gosh. Like the time is now hitting me how long that probably had been. But yeah.
Didn't mean to suddenly make you feel the years that have passed.
I'm telling well, especially with how fast everything seems to move anymore. Like time has just no meaning anymore to me. It was either the other day or a couple of years ago. There's really no in between anymore.
Right?
It's a fraud. It was probably in between there.
I saw something just the other day, I think it was on Blue Sky, that the Xbox 360 turns 20 this year.
That hurt me.
Yeah.
Well,
just no, that can't be retro.
Can't be though, right? I think I saw something on Blue Sky the other day, and I can't remember which lovely person it was that I saw it from, but it was kind of the same thing where it was like, in my mind, a 20-year-old console, and it was like the old Atari, but then they were like, but the real 20-year-old console was like PlayStation 3, and my heart wanted to crumble and die. I was like, It's been 20 years from that one.
It's just not right.
It really isn't, but time keeps dragging us all along. It does not care.
No, it does not.
No,
it's merciless. But that's what First Gen Gamers is all about, is celebrating all of history as far as video games go. And today we are speaking about a specific topic. And this topic was picked because of Laceya and her preference for this. And if you weren't on the show, I don't know that I would have ever gotten to this topic because it's not a topic that I have a deep knowledge base of.
That's fair.
So I'm excited to have you on and be able to talk about it because, again, that is the mission of the show. Celebrate all corners of video game history.
And you do. And you do it well. It's always fun to listen to. I was even, I think we were talking, I was a little jealous. I'm like, the last one you all just did on the simulation games. I'm like, yep, that's another one that I can dive into.
And that was delirious. That was like that whole part at the end too, where we were just going through Steam and finding like Granny Simulator. That was 100% authentic. Ash was sending me the link and going, look at this. You got to look this up. And I'm sitting there going, we're so far away from Sim City and Sim Earth.
I mean, if there's anything you can think of that humans do, there's probably a simulation game for it.
Yes.
Which is, I don't even know if I'm exaggerating because you can, you guys went through it the last time. I actually did go look for an oligarch simulator. I was like, you know what? Maybe there is. when she was mentioning it. I didn't find one specifically for that, but there was some. I guess you could be like, well, we could say it is or whatever. So
Right,
you guys should get on that.
You could probably play Civilization that way. You could probably angle yourself towards an oligarchy if you really wanted to.
But the social media one, though, for sure, that would be a good one. You guys need to work on that.
Yes,
people would buy it. Absolutely.
Yep. But today, we are talking about one of your favorite genres.
It really is.
Full motion video games.
Full motion video games. I know anybody who has cross audience right now went, of course. That's what she's talking about right now. Yep.
I think every gamer has that one can that when it's opened, it's kind of like the prank can with all the spring snakes that come out. And, just you open that can and we're like, yay, we get to talk. Here comes our snakes. We get to talk about them. And that's you.
That is me.
Full motion video. For me, it's Res. For you, it's FMV.
We've all got one.
So, where to begin with FMV? I feel like we at least need to start. We need to set the table because younger gamers may not know about FMV, especially its roots.
That's fair because it's, I guess, still kind of niche. But there's a lot more that's kind of resurged over the last few years that have been in a much different quality camp, like a higher quality camp, if you will. So knowing where it came from, I mean, the very first one, to my understanding, was Astro Belt. And we're still in the arcades. But Dragon Slayer, it was kind of just like a space fighter game. And I think that's where some people might get a little confused, like the full motion video. I think a lot of people, the first thing they think of is just real actors, like we're watching a movie. But it can be any kind of filmed medium because most people probably have heard of Dragon Slayer. If you're familiar at all with FMV, that would probably be, in my mind, the first real one that took off that people are aware of. I mean, crap, they even had it in Stranger Things. If you remember, like the kids sitting around getting all mad, at the death scenes. But that was like 50,000 frames, I think, of hand-painted animations. That's
crazy.
And it was 22 minutes of video, which I know doesn't sound crazy now, but if you think about it, for that, it was mostly death scenes and things like that. But it came with the fact that Laserdisc was starting to come into the scene, and we could get like a whole like megabit of information, like on
this megabit.
I'm telling you, it was so cool. It would blow your mind. I can remember when a gig became a thing, and one of my best friend's dads was a gamer, bragging about how he could put all of his games on the computer. Didn't even need the disc anymore. And now I'm looking at 180 gigs to download games. And I'm like, my God, where we've come. Okay.
I have a tangential story to this that's just like this. So this was early 2000s. My in-laws had friends who lived in Chicago, and one of the friends was on the engineering staff of Harpo Studios.
Ooh.
So if you don't know that would be Oprah's studio. So we get a tour of Harpo Studios on the weekend. Everything's closed, so we just get to tour the whole thing. This was back when Oprah's show was still on the air, so we got to go on the set, and we sat in Oprah's chair.
That's fun.
We all took turns being like, yes, we're Oprah today. But the part
you get a car.
But the part that ties into the technology is, so we're going through the server room that controls all of the technology in the place. All, links all the computers together and all the control boards and everything. And again, this is like 02, 03, 04, somewhere around there. And we're walking through, and he's pointing this out, and that out, and explaining all this. And I'm the only tech geek among the family. Like my in-laws, my wife, my sister-in-law, we're all there, and no one could give a shit about the technology, but I do. And he points to these servers and he goes, each one of these servers, each one of those is a terabyte, and there's 4 of them. These are state of the art. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, a terabyte.
Especially then.
Right. Now
know?
I've got a 2 terabyte hard drive attached to my
Mhm.
PlayStation 5 and it cost me like $100.
That's the nice thing about tech. The better it gets, in theory, it should be getting a little cheaper.
Right. But anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah, Dragon's Lair, which we should add, you were mentioning that it was all hand-drawn animation.
Mhm.
Hand-drawn by Don Bluth Studios, the studio that did American Tail, Secret
Mm.
Nim.
Yeah, good
Did
call
they do
out.
The Land Before Time?
You know what? I think you might be right.
Yeah, so that major
Mhm.
animation studio produced some. Secret of Nim is, I mean, it's creepy as hell, but I love that movie. So
Yeah.
this wasn't just a low budget animation studio out of the middle of nowhere. This was Hollywood grade animation.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you could actually get them today still. There's been some people who's managed to, I mean, I can get them on Steam. So there is a nice resurgence of some of these groups that are trying to preserve some of these things. And that, I believe, 100% should be, because it created its own life and it took off. I mean, once you get Dragon's Lair, I know there was a couple more of them. And it actually made really good money, you know, even by today's standards, I would think. I think they said somewhere around like 50 mil or something. But there was 50 cents to play Dragon's Lair in the arcade as opposed to 25. You know what I mean? So I know we're looking at that today going, what? I'm like, no, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of quarters.
Right.
Pump it in, you know?
And it wasn't like Space Invaders or Pac-Man or something where you could gain extra lives and you can, you know, and there was a real depth of gameplay. FMV games, especially that very, very early Dragon's Lair, is like all, for lack of a better term, Twitch based. It's like all reactionary. You get either this potion over here is blinking or this door is blinking. Which one is the right path? One will kill you, one precedes you to the next scene. So the only skill was in the speed of your reaction time. Everything else was just trial and error.
You're not wrong. Yeah.
And you could,
I call it the QTEs is what we call it today. But I would say it's the same exact thing. Like when you're walking down the hallway, and I can't even remember which boss it was now, but I can remember like how the light would move and you had to make sure you were staying in the dark part of it, you know? And that's just learning to hit it at the right time or being quick. So yeah, we just turned it into calling it QTEs, but that's exactly what it was. Yeah.
But now take QTEs and make that the entire game, and it's 50 cents per play. It was a brilliant racket. Brilliant.
It really was. I mean, you better keep putting them in there, because once that death scene happens, sometimes you got 30 seconds, so like just to make you feel tense. Go get mom. We need a quarter. You know, break $1. You know, or you'd stack them all up there. And I think you actually, was it more than one player at some point? Maybe I'm thinking like 2 or 3, or as we got.
I don't know.
Because I didn't get the pleasure of actually getting to play that one in an arcade. That was something that I ended up playing much later when it started to be able to move to PC and people were starting to move things over to there. So yeah, I kind of find that that's kind of its inception. That's its birth. I even kind of attribute some QTEs to that, but most video games probably were at that point in time. If you think about it, I could even call that with Pong if you want. Like, am I moving the thing fast enough for quick reaction time, hand-eye coordination?
And it was very in the arcades, because I did get a chance to play it in arcades a couple of times.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
But I never, after a few experiences of it, I never wanted to do it again. Not because it wasn't interesting or fun, but because of the 50 cents.
It would break you, man. Yeah.
Right. If I had 4 quarters, I could play Dragon's Lair twice, or I could play Dig Dug twice and Root Beer Tapper twice. It was just practical.
Root Beer Tapper. I love that.
Love Root Beer Tapper.
Or was it Betty's Beer Bar? Was that another arcade one? I feel like I played that.
So Root Beer Tapper was originally just called Tapper, and it was and you were serving beer, and like the little handle to serve the beer was the Budweiser logo, and a whole bunch of angry moms got all pissy of, oh, you're teaching children to serve alcohol. Yeah. So
they never stopped complaining about games since.
Nope. And so they caved and they redesigned it so that way it was Root Beer Tapper. So I want to say that it was called Betty's Bar in one of them, and it might have.
I just remember seeing foam. So maybe I did get to it before the parents got all angry and made them change it to root beer, because I remember the foam on the top of it, unless they just kept all of the animations and just changed out the logo so it didn't say Budweiser, which I could understand. That would probably be the cheaper option.
I think they did. I think they just like removed all the references to beer and they turned the root beer, or they turned the
just
liquid
put root above everything.
Yeah, they like turned it from golden to dark brown. It was not a hard switch. If you can find a retro arcade now, I know there's still plenty of surviving cabinets. We've got 2 of them in the area that both have root beer tapper. Or I'm sorry, not root beer tapper. Tapper, the original.
The original. How it was meant to be played.
Exactly.
I mean, we're talking in the 80s, you could have ran to the gas station and get your parents' beer. They knew it was for your parents, or to the bar.
Right.
I mean, maybe that was in the small town I grew up in. But I was sent to Alice's Tavern many times as a 12-year-old, and they would let me get a candy bar.
Nice.
I didn't know what I was doing. I just walked at the block back home. Here you go. And went about my day.
Some for your parents, some for you.
Some for me, exactly.
But yeah, I did play Dragon's Lair in the arcades a few times. I could tell you from experience, it was the most attention-grabbing arcade because of its visuals. You know, when you've got, I want to say it came out 83, 84, somewhere around there.
Yep.
So, you know, next to it, you've got like Ms. Pac-Man and Berserk and Defender and Dig Dug, all great games, mind you. But you've got those games which are pixelated, and most of them are single screen, you know, experiences. Right. And then you've got what's basically a friggin' cartoon.
Yeah, you're watching a movie that you're getting to mess with, you know, that you get to control a little bit. I mean, I can see how that evolution would work too. Because I mean, back when we were first doing just the text-based RPGs, well, I mean, all of us can remember just sitting around a table doing it really old school, right? Pen and paper and doing all that. But, you know, with PCs, they did do a lot of those just text-based. Well, I mean, the original Fallout's a good example. The very first one was pretty much only text. I played a lot of those too. I really like those choose your adventure role-playing type games. I would sit there and type, I'm walking down the hallway, I picked up the quarter, whatever, let's see what happens, you know? And then now you get to see it as a movie, you know, which I would say that probably came a little bit later. We weren't really doing like pick one of your answers to choose a branching pathway or anything yet. You know, we're still linear. Yeah, that's the original one that started in Laserdisc. And then when we started getting CDs and DVDs, they started to actually have a little bit of a rise. And I know there's probably a disconnect on, I don't know if a lot of the people who listen here were mostly console growing up, which is fair. I had, you know, the original Nintendo. I had a 16-bit Atari, which I still have. I'm kind of a console hoarder. From the ones that I have bought through the years, the one thing I'm happy I didn't get rid of is all of my gaming consoles. But when PC became a thing, we just went to it. I was very lucky that my mom was also very interested in it, ended up getting me my own PC because she got so addicted we couldn't share anymore. And it was the Wild West of games at that time. There was no ESRB breathing down our neck. Nobody was paying attention to us PC people. So it kind of got a little irritating when they started putting some of the same things on console, and then those parents would gripe. And then now I'm like, we were happy in our corner. Can you just leave us out of it? Yes, we're playing things that we should not be playing at 10 years old, but leave us alone, you know?
Right.
Especially in the 90s, because that's where I would say we'd see the biggest, you know, blow up of it. We got CDs now. We can hold more. Games were coming with 7 flipping discs or more, because there's just like, how much can we cram into here? I was living a good life in the beginning of the 90s, man, with all of these FMV games.
And I think that was a big driving factor, or at least for the start of the that initial launch of full motion video games was we've got a CD. What can we put on it? It wasn't so much of a how can we maximize it and how can we use it to a fullest advantage. It was we can now put actual music on it. It doesn't sound like a MIDI tune that has been re-recorded through 4 different sources. We could put symphonies and rock music, and we could put real actors.
Voice acting and real actors.
And they didn't, I'm not going to say they didn't think about quality, but they were definitely in love with the ability more than they were thinking about what they could do with it, which is how you got things like Night Trap and Double Switch and Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective.
Yeah, it wasn't like they were trying to innovate on mechanics.
No.
Definitely not. I'll definitely say that even though if you looked at it now, it would probably seem fairly unique because we don't do a whole lot in that way. I would think anymore like when you're mentioning Double Switch and all of those. I had a blast with that one, but I'm not going to sit here and say all of the ones that I grew up loving was just this amazing piece of cinema that I feel like everybody should go run out and try. I acknowledge that a lot of the stories were bizarre, weird, probably couldn't even do today without getting all sorts of, Harvester, anyone? Some of you who played them probably know, but I've seen some people that have gotten into FMVs today that I'm like, hey, you should look at this. And what are you showing me? Why is there half a man in a military outfit sitting on a sidewalk just having this conversation with me? Moms hitting on kids. You know what I mean? Like, it was very touchy subjects that they were putting in there for horror because they thought it was weird and bizarre. But you kept watching it like a train wreck. And he's like, what is this? Yeah, I played them. Because I think that what really drew me to that medium is I always was an actor. I always enjoyed that medium. And that seemed like a really fun, cool way to be an actor. You get to film the same thing different ways, different emotions. Like that just seemed like as a creative, how cool that would get to be.
I never thought of it that way. That's a good point. Like you get to tell the story, but you get to tell a dozen different versions of that one story. It's not just here's a movie, here's this version of the movie and that version of the movie, and it puts the player in the path of doing that, of picking the path which way that movie will unfold. That's an interesting way to look at it.
I just thought that was so cool to get to do. And even now, one of the very, very first ones I remember actually sitting around and playing with a group, couple of girls that I grew up with on our street were probably like 10 or 11. We shouldn't be playing this stuff. Was a game Phantasmagoria.
I've heard of that. And I remember seeing the box of that. And between the box and just the name, it's such a horror name, and it
really is.
Yeah, and it's got this man, I can't even describe it. It's kind of eldritch, like Lovecraftian, but it also kind of has just a little B movie flair to it.
Oh God, very B movie.
And I always wanted to play it, and I never had a PC with the horsepower to do it.
Oh yeah, that sucks. But it was yeah, I guess it depends on when you did it. Because I want to say our first PC was probably 3.1 Windows. When Flash Player was, you needed it if you were going to be able to do anything video on the PC. And I know we got a 95, which just felt like such a huge upgrade. I think we had like 256 megabyte hard drive, and you didn't need online. I think that was what was cool about it. But I can remember
any young people listening are like 256 megabyte hard drive.
That was huge.
Yeah,
right. You get more than that on your phone now.
Right. I could get more than that on like my toaster.
Right. The fridge, smart fridge these days probably got like 20 million gigs. Roberta Williams, though, she was, I would say, very respected in that medium, a really good writer. She did a lot of different stuff in that vein. This was the first time I had ever come across it, but I wouldn't recommend it for kids, or at least at the time. Again, this didn't have a rating. Remember, this was still before they started doing all of that. And there were some scenes that I remember watching going, oh, I don't know if I even fully can understand what I just witnessed. And then when I look at it in adult eyes, I'm like, oh God, no, my mom should have been watching this closer. I'm okay, but still. But that was the first one I remember playing front to back. And it was just days hours and hours and hours of video. And I wouldn't say there was really branching paths. Like you lived or you died. So we didn't really get too into it yet, but there were several different ways you could die. And we were still using green screen, or we were using green screen. So it was the actors, but I can't imagine how odd that had to feel just doing all of those weird, bizarro scenes just in front of a green screen. I don't know.
And now that's become the Hollywood standard.
And now we're going back to it. You're right.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. But then when they got to the second one, Phantasmagoria 2, now we have sets and we're no longer using a green screen, and it has nothing to do with the first one. Guys, there's no link. Don't try to make one. And that one's even worse for children. So let's just put it there. But that was so much fun. That one did have a couple of different endings, but again, he actually has a YouTube channel now. I should mention the lead actor who did Phantasmagoria 2. He's doing his own YouTube for a couple of years now where he actually played through it. They never played the game, which I guess at the time they weren't necessarily guaranteed to be given a copy just because you were in it. Or they didn't even have like a computer, or they weren't gamers. Even listening to him explain it, he's like, I did the thing, but I don't know if it was really clicking how it was going to look or how I envisioned it. And then he was horrified when he heard how many like 13-year-olds were playing the game. He's like, what are you guys? Like, yeah, nobody watched us then. Sorry, Curtis. We weren't being paid attention to. Nobody cared. We were just out of their way, and that was fine.
Mom and dad just opened the door. They're like, you've been on the Sega Genesis for 4 hours. Are you hungry? Dinner soon. Yeah, Mom, I'll be finished in a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that was it.
Door.
Close the door, go back to Kid Chameleon.
Exactly. But then, like you said, here comes Night Trap that reared its ugly head. And still, like, looking back on it, it is hilarious to me that was the one that created the outrage. Because, again, coming from the PC side, I'm like, do you guys see all this stuff I had been playing already? That this was the problem? Guys dressed up in black outfits raiding a sleepover as vampires?
Never mind the fact that I remember all the outrage, I think it was Senator Joe Lieberman who was leading the campaign, who just had a stick up his ass about it.
Case over it, yeah.
And he's it's encouraging violence against women, and it's encouraging sexual assault and blah blah blah. You're playing to stop that.
Right.
You're not playing as some serial sex offender or some Jason Voorhees style killer. Mm-mm. You are playing as a member of a fucking SWAT team to try and stop the vampires. How is that bad? How is that encouraging this?
And I'm still not even sure. I mean, I read the background of it, because when you listen to vampires and you see what it was, there's nothing about them that looks like a vampire whatsoever.
No.
If they hadn't said the word vampire, I would have never even made that connection. And apparently, I guess they did have more gnarly looking monsters and stuff, but kind of scaled it back to like even the company that's giving them the money. It's maybe a little too violent to this, that, or the other. So I thought it was funny that instead of just still using vampires that look like vampires, or what we would imagine vampires in 92, that, well, okay, we'll just make them bad guys in black suits that,
It's like the Gimp from Pulp Fiction, but dressed in dollar store clothing.
Yes. I don't. Yeah. But yeah, the whole point was, like you said, you're just manning the cameras, the security cameras that are in their house, and you want to flip the screen at just the right time so you could either hear a code or get to there in time to set off the trap so whomever doesn't get abducted or killed or whatever. And there was really only one scene that even I remember thinking that was actually fairly brutal. And after everything to leave it in was, if you didn't catch, I think it was the one in the shower. Like, she goes into the bathroom, she's looking in the mirror and gets taken from behind. And there's like this, I don't know, weird door in the shower, like turns around, and now like a yakety sax kind of moment, I guess, where you're going through a door. But it had this large needle thing that they stuck in her neck and like drew the blood out. And I'm like, that's more terrifying than just saying vampire bit her neck.
Yeah, because it was this weird contraption, I remember, and there's like 3 or 4 of them around her, and yeah, the needle comes in, and it's definitely the scariest thing in the movie or in the game. At the same time, it's about as scary as like a Full Moon Entertainment movie. Like this is still B grade USA Up All Night shown at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Campy. Like there's nothing scary about this it's intended to be scary, but it's so corny.
No, it was really bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I still think it's funny out of all of those that we had, that was the one that got such, the public ire or what. I mean, I'm like, I bet the parents don't even know what it was either. And when you listen to the trial, like if you really want to go back and listen to some of the court cases or like the actual trial or whatever you want to call it, it's hilarious because you could tell they don't really know what they're talking about either. None of them played the game or probably even bothered to watch enough of it to really understand. They probably only saw a couple of scenes of them getting like pulled into the, wall, like I said, or the trap was throwing a bed at the right time so they would fly out the window. I mean, it's all very like Acme,
Yeah, very Looney Tunesy. And the hilarious postscript of all of this is during the testimony that they had someone from Sega and they had someone from the production company that did it. And then they have the president of Nintendo of America at the time, Howard Phillips, who was this relatively genial guy, very famous for wearing a bow tie. He was always illustrated in Nintendo Power looking like the guy who runs the corner candy store. And he gets on and he's passionate. He's fire and brimstone. He's pounding the table. And I can guarantee you that never, ever will Night Trap grace a Nintendo console. And I can turn around right now, turn on my Nintendo Switch, and Night Trap Remastered is available in the eShop.
Telling you, man. Yeah. These days, though, who cares? That's the least of your worries that's going on these shops, But yeah, it was a weird time. Probably weirder now, but it was a weird time for video games right there, making that transition. Thankfully, those of us on the PC still kind of got left alone a little bit. Sure, the ESRB came in. We started getting ratings. So what? I don't think I was still getting carded to buy games yet. Nobody really started taking it seriously until maybe over the last decade or so, I feel. But
I can tell you from my experience, the first time that I had any experience carding with a game, I was actually working at the store. It was Software Etc. The only game that we carded was Grand Theft Auto.
Interesting. And I mean, I kind of can understand that, though.
But this was still late 90s, and this was at the time, like, Tecmo's Deception was out at that point. And that's a game where you are a Satan worshiper who has sold your soul to the devil and are trapping people who come into your castle. And it's overt with its satanic imagery. Carmageddon was out at that point. There were a number of games where there was just wanton destruction and craziness. Resident Evil, I think two of the Resident Evils had come out by then, but the only thing that we carded, GTA.
Interesting. And see, I wouldn't even really think that's a huge problem until you get to 3. You know what I mean? Like GTA 3 would have been a little bit more, now we have this open world and we're literally beating everyone up like this, or the hookers being introduced, or blah, blah, blah. So it's I kind of get it from that perspective. We do very much have adult content that's going on in that game. And I'm not saying I disagree with having ratings. I absolutely do agree. Some are age appropriate and some are very not. And yes, unfortunately, those of us, we played very age inappropriate things.
Yeah.
I think I'm okay. I guess that's subjective. I think I came out all right,
It was, but it really was though the Wild West time, and to bring it back to the full motion video games, just as much as the video game industry was kind of in a Wild West and exploratory, and then the ESRB coming in, full motion video games were kind of that way too, because that genre had never existed before 90, 91.
Right.
And then all, with the exception of Dragon's Lair, but using real life video, that was new. And they were really stumbling in the dark, trying to figure out what can we do with this? How can we gamify it?
Mm-hmm. And I say I had a great time in the 90s when they were figuring that out, because you could tell they were really trying to legitimize it too, because I don't know if anyone understands how many famous actors that you would have seen on your TV and your movie that, that were in these games. And like Christopher Lloyd was in Toonstruck. Dennis Hopper was in Black Dahlia. Tim Curry in Command and Conquer. Actually, I think he was also in a Frankenstein one too. I mean, most people, even if you've never played Command and Conquer, you've probably seen that one scene that everywhere where capitalism doesn't exist. Space, and it's glorious because it's Tim Curry. Like, how do you not love that? Gosh, I could
Wing
go on.
Commander 3. I remember Wing Commander 3 being marketed because the first two were strict flight simulator style games.
Yep.
And and they pivoted the third one to heavy, if not necessarily full motion video, at least using for the gameplay, at least using it for the cutscenes.
Absolutely.
And that had a Hollywood actor cast. I can't remember all of them, but I know the one that sticks off the top of my head is Mark Hamill.
Yep. Absolutely.
Double Switch had Corey Haim. Night Trap had someone that the kids today won't know, but Dana Plato, who was the older sister on Different Strokes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they even did an X-Files game that had David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson. I loved that game. I played the crap out of that game, but I loved X-Files also. So it all worked. Yes, I had a David Duchovny crush when I was a teenager. It's fine.
I had a Gillian Anderson crush, so
you know what? Fair, because even now I look at her and I'm like, you know what? If I was, she's just still so flipping gorgeous. It kills me. And just graceful and like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Yeah, she's great. I love her. So yeah, there was tons of famous actors kind of lending credence to it. I don't know if they regretted it later or what, but shoot, I'm trying to remember the Goosebumps game too. Why can't I think of his name? Sorry. If anything you know about Lace is horrible to remember names. Was really impressed. I remember the ones I did so far. Shoot, I'll think of it later. But they did a really good job, I think, in that area, like till we got to about 98, where I still feel like the stories were still fun. We were starting to try to do something a little different mechanics wise outside of just clicking on a video camera, because Double Switch, Night Trap, a lot of those kind of had that same mechanic where we're watching different screens and you've got to click on the right screen at the right time to hear the right code or whatever it is that you needed to do. But I would say it started to drop off hard once we got to the end of the 90s, early 2000s. Even I'll admit they weren't good anymore. X-Files followed more of like an RPG. You clicked on a thing, you opened the thing, you put it in your inventory, you had to collect stuff, there was puzzles to solve. So we did a lot of that kind of thing. And then it just died. And it kind of deserved it. We were getting ridiculous and the stories weren't even fun anymore. It was time to find something new. And I probably played a good chunk of them. I can't sit here and say I played every single one, but I got a good chunk in. You know what I mean? Like I got a good chunk because in the First Degree, I think would still be one I would recommend if somebody wants to kind of go back and play one. You could probably find it on Abandonware if you do the PC download thing, because it was Windows 3.1. So I have the old disc, but man alive, trying to get those things to work on modern day. It's funny, the older I get, the more I wish I had an older PC to run the things that I used to play back then, because these work so much faster now. I tried to play Seventh Guest on the PC I have right now, and I was going to get motion sick from just how fast I would be getting shot down a hallway. You know, I'm not even getting that whole ambiance of the hallway moving past me. I'm just like, oh my God, you're straight there. It would have never been that fast back then. So it's a little harder to play those.
The game wasn't built to be that fast. So it's like all of a sudden this game that was made to be in 24 FPS is now in 60. It's just like...
yeah. Like you maybe had 32 megabits of color to work with, and here I'm getting shot down this hallway. So it was really hard to play on a modern hardware. And I have noticed once we started getting past Windows 7 backwards compatibility options when it didn't work as well. Like even now it has the button there. I'm thinking it's ornamental, honestly, or a throwback for nostalgia. Remember when you used to be able to do this sort of thing? So, but in the First Degree, I would recommend, but I liked those investigative type things. You played a lawyer, there was a death. You have to go and talk to all of the people involved and collect evidence. And then you would actually go to the court after you did all of that. Now you're the lawyer and doing all that. I thought it was so cool. And the acting wasn't actually bad for what it was. But that one I'll always come back to. If I can find a way to get it running, I'll play that one again. I definitely go back to that one a lot. And I keep trying to play Black Dahlia, but I lost a disc, damn it. And I don't know what to do.
Is it on GOG?
I'll have to look now that I had seen that you had posted that where they're bringing back a bunch of those. I hope so.
Oh yeah. So
they're not great, but I like to preserve those things in history. You know what I mean?
If you haven't seen the news, quick tangent for the listeners. GOG, Great Old Games, has launched a program called Wishlist. And the whole idea of it, I mean, GOG already is a great storefront for preserving these old games. You know, you can get TIE Fighter and Loom and Postal and all sorts of 90s. I have it. It's fucking terrible, but it really is. But it's terrible in that way of I can sit there and be a moron for 10 minutes and
just go pee on everything.
Yeah. But they have announced a program called Wishlist wherein you can tell them the games that you want to see on their storefront, and they are going to pursue the rights holders and see if they can get them on.
I hope so.
It's just it's blown up all over Blue Sky. Like the day that they announced it, my feed was just dozens of people going, these are the 4 games that I put on the wish list. These are the 8 games that I put on the wish list. Such a great idea for game preservation.
It really is.
And for getting
Nintendo,
games,
listen.
Right? Good Lord. We don't want Super Mario Brothers for the 48th time. We would like something. We would like something from the rest of your library.
Right. I guess I hate the fact that you're not even going to let me buy it. Like, there's so many people willing to throw you money and you're just going to archive it. I don't know. That's what bothers me. Let us give you money. Isn't that what you want? I don't know. Make it accessible. But yeah, so we died for about 15 years. I would say I struggle bust from like 2000 for the next 15 years to find any decent, good. People just weren't even really making them. Sure, you're going to find some pockets here or there. And they just didn't have that same fun, that same feel. However, come 2015 up till now, I'm back in the good life, guys, because they did resurge in a pretty wonderful way. And I'm going to point to Sam Barlow. I feel like he did bring that back in and showing that we could have quality story, amazing actors, fun, different ways to play the game. And he's still going, and I will buy anything he puts out. I don't even care. You put his name on it, I'm going to be there. And it's a game called Her Story that came out in 2015. I still always would search every once in a while to see if a new FMV had come out, and see if it would be something. And I caught this one for $5 whole. And I'm like, yeah, let's just see what it is. And it's really simple. One actor, and it is another mystery that you're trying to find out what happened to her. You're sitting in front of a computer screen and you're literally searching through this computer to try to find the different videos. Now, you're probably not going to see it in any real order. That's what's fun about it. You'll type, I need to find this. If they said that word in one of the videos, those videos will come up and you can get like 5 that you can click through to watch. So you're just going to watch them in a very disjointed way, trying to put together the mystery of what's happening to this woman on the other side. She's in a police interrogation room and you're just listening to her testimony over what happened. And I don't want to spoil it because I would still say it still holds up. If you like mysteries like that told in this kind of weird, disjointed, mysterious kind of way, that I played through it so many times. I wanted to make sure I saw every single video. That woman was amazing. I hope she's gone on to do amazing, beautiful things because she was just so good. And I
This
think it
is
was the first
intriguing.
time I'd seen such amazing acting and with such a cool story like that in such a long time. And so I followed him from that because I want to say his first one, I actually went to go look. I'm like, did he do any more? And he did like an RPG called Isle, which is kind of funny. And it's straight up just text-based where you're in a grocery store aisle.
That was not where I expected that to go.
And it's just, you're in the aisle. Oh, you saw a woman and you saw cereal and you saw this. What do? And then you just type in what you want to do and whatever happens, happens. So he was very much a fan of that kind of RPG style. That one made me start going to want to search even harder to see if we had a really cool resurgence of FMV. And then entered DeVecchi Studios, who is an amazing husband and wife team that they did a bunch of like murder mystery party games and then decided to also film and start doing FMV video games. And The Infectious Madness of Dr. Decker still now is one of my top of all time. And you played a therapist who came in because Dr. Decker was murdered. But who did it? What happened? And now you're taking over a lot of his patients and trying to help them, but also solve this mystery. But here's where we started getting into some really cool mechanics. You don't know who the murderer is going to be every time you start a new game. All of them can be at one point. It is a random draw when you hit new game. So there's about
FMV roguelike?
I mean, it's kind of, I guess, if you wanted to look at it that it's very random. And I don't think I've still gotten lucky enough to get all of them as the killer because there's still like 50 hours of video in this guy. So it's a decently long game. Like,
Holy shit.
and the acting is amazing. And I used to stream and everyone would always come when I played these games because of Aslan Diath. And I'm not going to lie, she's a gorgeous lady and she's very good. And everyone would come drool over her and rightfully so because hooliha. That's when I started to go, okay, we're back. We're back, baby. Because the only mechanic really for that too was typing out a question. And hopefully you hit a keyword and it would either trigger a video or it would trigger a video that's like, I don't know what you're trying to ask me, but it was always filmed. You always had some sort of video to film. Now, I played it when it first came out. The only hint system. And this is why I thought, we're getting back to old school too. Like you either wrote it down on a pen and paper or you didn't finish the game. There's no hint systems or anything like that. You could type hint once every like 30 minutes, or I think it depended on which version, if you want to be like easy, medium, hard, however long. And then it would give you a hint that you could type out and try to finish it. And there was levels of madness that you could go into as the therapist. If you learned just enough to move on, go ahead and move on. You'll stay pretty sane. But if you dive even deeper and get everything, you'll get an even different ending from just how much more madness you now descend into. And I was so in love. I was so in love with this game. I still sometimes go back to it. Like I'm just so impressed with how they were able to do it. They did put some updates and stuff into it now to where it's not fully just having to type everything out. You can do a drop down system and choose the different things to ask, which is fair because it got ported to console. And I could only imagine just how horrible that type of game would be to play on a console unless you had an actual keyboard for it. But I was just a little disappointed that they did it that way. So I'm going to be one of those elitists and like, I'm playing it before, But they kept going with a lot of really amazing games and Shape-Shifting Detective. Little humble brag, I did a voiceover on that one, but just a very small one. But that was also a lot of fun. Another murder mystery. That one was set a little bit differently too. You actually shifted into the different people. So if you met someone when you went back to like your hotel or whatever the base was, now you can shift into that person and go back out and talk to everyone once again as that person. And you continue to do that until you figured out the mystery at the end. So if you're really wanting to look into, hey, is there some cool FMVs now? anything from DeVecchi, you're not going to go wrong. Anything from Sam Barlow, you're not going to go wrong.
And this is not, I just want to make clear for the sake of the listeners here, this isn't like, it's still cheesy B movie, but we enjoy it because it's cheesy.
I wouldn't even say it's cheesy, really. Well, I mean, maybe.
These are these are the games you're championing, just the way that I'm hearing it. It sounds like these are much more, they might be cheesy, but they're not like leaning into it. It sounds like they're they're trying to be very, very good.
Yes.
They're actually putting in the effort and not going, haha, we're low budget. Ha. There's an intent to make a quality thing here that if it's got B movie charm, it's just because. It's
just because, yeah. But no, it's a great story. And the actors they're getting for these things now are just so good that, yeah, it might seem cheesy because of its medium. But honestly, I would probably challenge anyone to not just watch maybe a YouTube or a Let's Play. If you don't like playing those, I bet you might enjoy just watching the story because they have gotten so good with how they've written some of these stories now.
I got to be honest, just the two that you said right now or just before, I'm probably going to forget them before the day is.
I'll send you the list.
Thank you. I was about to say, I'm going to be messaging you, asking you for these names because the two that you've said so far are really intriguing, especially the second one. That one has
Dr.
got
Decker.
that one's got this kind of
it's very Cthulhu feel also. I'll put that out there. And the way they did the ambiance, the way the story gets kind of disjointed for a minute. Do I know what's going on? Is it real even?
It also reminded me a bit of the movie Dressed to Kill.
Oh, I don't know if I've seen that.
It's early 80s, Brian De Palma. He was trying to do a Hitchcock homage.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't really, in my opinion, it wasn't very successful, but it had a great idea behind it, wherein this patient of a psychiatrist was killed, and then it was a question of, did another one of the patients do it? And is there a secret that the psychiatrist is hiding? So you follow the psychiatrist and one of his patients, and you see some of the sessions. So it's reminding me of that kind of suspense, thriller kind of vibe to it. That kind
Very
of
much.
and I love that feel of it, especially, when it's got a little Hitchcock flavor, because I'm a huge Hitchcock nerd. So just the way that you've described it is, I may have,
you might really love it, honestly. And it's so simple. It's just one set, everyone on this couch. But they tell the story so well, and they got, those two, that husband and wife, I hope they do great. And they're actually working on the second one. So I'm pretty excited to I'm going to get a Dr. Decker too. I can't wait to see what they do with it, because I'm like, we had it joked in our Discord, how many times are we going to kill this poor man? I don't know. But I'm here for it every time they want to do it.
And I think what else is also interesting me about this now is that as I've gotten older as a gamer, the challenge of gaming, the literal challenge of it, like actually the difficulty of within the game itself, has become less appealing.
Yeah, I feel that.
And the narrative aspect of the game has become more appealing. I don't have time to get good with Dark Souls and shit like that. I don't want to spend, if I'm going to put 100 hours into a game, I want it to have 100 hours worth of story. I don't want to, or at least 100 hours of forward progression gameplay, not 30 repetitions of trying to beat the same stupid mini boss. So this Dr. Decker game and the other game that you mentioned prior to that, Her Story, yes. Which kind of sounded like the horror movie Unfriended, kind of. Not completely, because Unfriended had a huge supernatural element.
I was thinking I could see where,
But at least using that kind of seconds or of that found footage, but within a computer screen aspect. It's very narrative driven. And I love the idea of these being narrative driven games that I don't have to sit there and try to memorize combos and make sure that my fingers are moving fast enough. I can just sit there and enjoy a damn story.
Right. And you will. I mean, the only time I remember getting frustrated was just like I kept asking and asking and asking, and maybe I'm not getting a new video. So it kind of, you really want to pay attention in ways that you probably wouldn't have thought, because that one little word, if you would have just caught on to it, could open up so much more stuff. So yeah, if you're definitely wanting to look now, those would be one of my top two. But Sam Barlow and DeVecchi have gone on to keep continuing to up the ante and how good their games and their stories are, that you can't go wrong, in my opinion, with those two. Even his latest one, Sam Barlow, Immortality, is very adult. I'll put that out there. It does have, nudity and things like that. But again, it was another one of those that the way it was he loves that disjointed storytelling, because even his one game, Telling Lies, was that same way, where you just kind of like picked up different videos here or there trying to piece together this mystery that was going on. But Immortality, I think it's right at the top, because my God, the acting and the story was just so weird and great. And you were trying to figure out what happened to this actress. And you're watching all of these different videos of, where did she go? What happened? And you're watching her through the 70s, in the 90s. Now we're in present day. How? What? So you're basically looking through 3 different movies that she had made, and some behind the scenes footage, of course, when like cameras were still rolling and conversations that are happening and all this kind of stuff. But
Right.
The fun mechanic about it is you're going to have to listen closely, because there'll be parts in the video, if you hear something weird going on, you would hit a button. You're in a different part of like this whole thing now. Like you're seeing this whole other supernatural, ethereal, I don't even know how to explain it, man, but it was just the first time I hit that mechanic and saw what he was doing with it. I was just so in love and blown away. We're like, now this is an even crazier way to be telling your story. So yeah, Sam Barlow, he's got 2 more coming out. I think they actually just announced on one of the Game Awards. Project D or Project C. Don't laugh and giggle. I know. But the whole point was that they kept it secret. Even when you went to the Steam page, they had things blocked out, so you couldn't read like the whole description. And you know what? After Immortality and everything, I'm here for it. It's going to be really weird and fun, and I'm here.
It sounds like he's earned the right to have that kind of secrecy and yet still have the faith of the fan base.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way you're describing it. I came into this episode where my experience with FMV was Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, which had like
still fun.
On the Sega CD took on the screen took about 13% of the TV screen and had a resolution of 4.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Lethal Enforcers,
Mm-hmm.
Which barely counts. It's like an FMV shooting game.
Like Corpse, or what was that?
Corpse Killer.
I think maybe that was the one. It was still
Corpse Killer?
FMV, but they would still like fly at the screen, and you would like try to shoot them like you're on rails, kind of.
But yeah, all my FMV experience was Sega CD, which it both doomed the console because it was the wrong thing to invest in for that console. But I think it also put a stain on the concept of FMV for a while. Like it saddled the idea of that genre with just the worst, make your own video crisscross in
oh my gosh, I remember that. Oh.
It just
there was another one too where you were like playing kids on a construction site or something too, where I was just like, okay, now we're losing it, and that was started to see that
was that The Adventures of Willie Beamish?
I feel like it was something as simple as just like kids go to work or something like that.
It might have been
or something.
It was amazing how many games on the Sega CD they weren't shovelware. They clearly put in effort, or at least they clearly put in a budget, but they didn't put in an effort that was commensurate to the budget. It was just throw the money at the problem and hope that it's okay. And that's how you got make your own music video crisscross.
Yes, yes. I think there was actually a few with that same kind of concept too. And I mean,
Yes. I think the other one was Marky Mark.
yes. Oh god.
Yeah.
What were we doing? See, this is what I mean. We lost our way there in a little bit. There,
Yeah.
what's gonna work, and we're throwing it at it. And it was probably a little cheaper to make because not programming an entire thing. There's still
Right.
programming. Don't get me wrong, but you're not putting together all these graphics or all of this coding or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like now we're in a good day and age for it if you know where to look. Because I kind of break them up into like you have the video games, but then we have interactive movies. And I kind of put them separate for a reason because most of the games will have a mechanic, waiting time, something like that. Mostly with interactive movies, it's like you got to choose right away. You might have one or two paths to go at that time, and then it'll branch off and go. But it kind of, I guess, just depends on your style. I think Bandersnatch was the first one I remember people saying, "Oh, this is such a cool thing. I've never seen it before." And like, so good on you, Netflix. I'll admit, it was good. It was good. But it kind of reminded me of when everyone was praising Kanye for discovering Paul McCartney. Where I was like,
my wife and I still make
around. This isn't a brand new thing,
My wife and I still make a joke about that every now and then. We'll still be like, thank God he discovered that young 80-year-old whippersnapper.
Just right before he was on his way out, he can finally experience what it's like to be a popular singer,
Yeah. What was that band he was in? The Garden Slugs, the House Flies, something like that.
I don't remember. Yeah. But that's what I attributed to. But again, I still think it was good. I'm not going to knock Bandersnatch for it. It was actually a good movie. It was a good time. It was done well. So yeah, I don't know. I could go on, but if we were just looking for like a few things, like, hey, I want to go back and play maybe a couple of things from then to kind of get a feel and see how things are now. I think the ones that we had already mentioned. I mean, watch a couple of videos of Night Trap if you've never seen any of it. And I apologize in advance. Yes, that song's probably going to be in your head for a week. Nothing I can do about that. It's just how it is. But if you're looking for any good like interactive movies, and this is maybe a good place to kind of, wrap her up on, because I know I'm not going to go 2 hours like we do over there, how we used to. But for some good interactive movies, you can, Wales Interactive is a really good publisher that manages to find some really cool independent developers who are making those things. And Paul Rashid is one that I see doing a lot of really great interactive movies. One that I will brag about with his is The Gallery. Not quite as most recent, but still fairly new, 21, 22, something like that. And it's 2 stories, but the same story told in 2 different generations, if you will. It's set in Britain. And I want to say the first year is 1981. So we're looking at, and then the next one was 2020. So 2 pretty big years of unrest for a lot of people, but especially for Britain in those times. And the first part that you're playing is you're the female protagonist. She's an art curator that's working in this museum during this time. And there is an artist who comes in and kind of just takes her hostage. I have this bomb. It's going to go off. You have to meet my demands. And you're going through this whole thing from start to finish, following the drama and how Anna Popplewell, is that her name? Did I say her last name right? Was the lead actress in that. I think she was like from Chronicles of Narnia, if I'm thinking of the right movie she was in. Anyway, quality. But then when you go to 2020, it's the same story, but now he is the art curator at this brand new designed art studio. And she comes in as the terrorist, I guess, or however you want to label her. It's the same actors who got to play both parts.
Interesting.
I found it very cool because it's the same script, you guys, but such a different feel. Because, I mean, we'll think of the technology in 2020 that they're not going to have in 81. So while it's the same script, it plays out so much differently. But that is 100% interactive movie. Your whatever pops up on screen for the couple of things that you can either choose to do or say, usually within a timer. Nowadays, they let you turn that timer off. So if you're the type who don't want to feel that kind of stress, a lot of these games, and I'll let you turn that off. I recommend highly that one. It gets mixed reviews on Steam, so you'll have to trust me on that. I get it. But I just think the way that story was told was unique and in a way I had never seen before. And it was a good story and a lot of fun. But if you want just like fun old, you could do 5 dates or 10 dates. It's literally just a rom-com and it's hilarious. And I have found I'm really bad at dating women. I don't know what it was. I could never choose the right thing. And I'm like, is this why guys say we're so complicated? I don't understand. Why do I not get it? But it's fun. And that's meant to be lighthearted and laugh at. And he even did 10 dates. And I'm still really bad at dating women. You added 5 more and I did not get better. I'm sorry. I did not. Yeah, I could go on and on and on. Unless you had any other questions that would be, or like anything else you wanted to think about in the genre.
No, I think this has been a fantastic discussion. I mean, like I was saying, I came into this with this much experience with it, a couple of games, and from the literal infancy of the genre and on the vehicle where it was the worst representation thereof. And I have come out of this with several game recommendations that I am, once you send me the names, that way my old man brain can remember them.
I don't, no judgments here. Yep.
I'm going to go put them on my wish list, and damned if I won't pick them up when they go on sale, because these sound damn good. This sounds so much far. The distance between what you've described the genre is now and what it was 30 years ago, it's
night and day.
Yeah. If the legacy of FMV games in the 90s if it has kept you away from it, if you've just looked at the genre as, Night Trap, that's the game with the weird guys wearing pajamas and kidnapping the girl from Different Strokes. If that's all you thought about it, I hope that you have heard enough here to give the genre a chance. I am going to be giving this genre a whole fresh set of eyes.
Good. I have one more. I'd be remiss to not say this one, because this one, again, is one of my favorites. It's called Not for Broadcast. And
I've heard of this one. But please, go ahead.
This is probably one of my favorite ones as well. I know I've said that about a lot of them, but like in my top 5, this sits up there. And when I go back to all the time, it's you're the one who's doing all the editing for like a news station. So you've got the different screens over here that's got which screen is going live. Your middle screen, the one that's a little bit on delay, and then what's actually going live. And you're controlling what is going on the TV, but you might have to censor because someone's going to drop an F-bomb or do something like that, or you might get some frequency that you have to fix, or you've got to switch it up every 10 seconds because all of us have no attention spans and your audience is going to start dropping. But it's another one where the story is so cool, and there's about 4 or 5 different ways it could end up with, again, hundreds of hours of video, that I've played through it like 3 or 4 different times because, again, there's so much to it. And unfortunately, like, they had to film during COVID, it stopped because of COVID. And then when things were getting, released. So you could tell there's like one section there. It's really weird because everybody had to like film from their own home and do all that. But the way they still put it together was so brilliantly done that the story in and of itself and the actors, again, kept me on the edge of my seat. And they've actually been putting out other little like DLCs. So you can just play like another 2 or 3 hours of like, we have a black and white version now from somebody doing like a telethon from the 1980s. Now that's what you're doing today. Or a music video. You better change it on the beat at the right time. And some of the songs are just hilarious. These guys are genius. Listen to the lyrics to some of these songs. You will die laughing. Like, how did you even come up with this crap? So Not for Broadcast is definitely one that you just, you have to.
When I was doing the research for this, I didn't get a chance to do a whole lot, but when I was doing some research for it, one thing I had to do was look up a list of the best full motion video games. Because I knew that the only full motion video games that I knew were not going to be on there. So I was curious to see what had gotten critical praise. not for broadcast was usually in the top 3 of the lists that I saw, if not the number 1, consistently.
Well deserved. It's just shot so well. The story is amazing. The different ways it can end up. I mean, even sometimes I'll still go back to it. I'm finding stuff I didn't know. Like it's packed with so much stuff. They give you so much extra to do. My God. Yeah. It was just amazing to see how they were able to put it all together. It took them a really long time, but I think all of it's out now. Maybe there's one more coming up, and then that'll be they're wrapping up that story and hopefully moving on to some other things, because there was another one that's made a believer out of me, But if quality acting, the mechanics, I think actually would do great for VR. I think they were asked that a lot, and they might be doing a VR version, because like when you look at it, you'll know what I'm talking about, where you're like, oh yeah, this would totally be great for VR because of just the way everything is set up. But yeah,
I'm imagining like a big control board, like it's control board and screens, and I'm just not even seeing it. I can imagine that being great for VR, being able to look around and here's these levers and here's these levers over here. And yeah, that sounds perfect.
You even have to go under like change for the ad breaks. And they filmed a bunch of ads that are also amazing and hilarious. You're basically in like this dystopian 80s universe where one government, imagine that, is coming up and kind of taking over everything. And you can decide, is that going to be a good way? Is it going to be a bad way? Is it going to be neutral? You're the one putting it in their eye holes. You're the one deciding which video gets to go up. And then you have your own little RPG that's kind of going on in the background with your family at home and things like that. And so you're affecting how that ends up too. So yeah, today's day and age is great. You're getting a lot of video, you're getting quality acting, you're getting branching paths like we would have never been able to do before. Check them out, guys. Keep them alive. Please support Deveki, the Not for Broadcast people, and Sam Barlow, because I want them to make money so I can keep playing them. And thank you.
Do as she says, people.
That's my
Do as she says.
Go buy their games so I can keep playing them.
Do as she says. I'm going to. Once I get that list, like I said, I'm putting these things on my wish list, and I will be keeping an eye out for them, because these sound so damned intriguing. I've been in I don't want to say I've been in a rut, but it's like all the games kind of are homogenizing together of, oh, it's another third-person action game with an axe or a gun. Oh, it's another RPG. Oh, it's this sounds like such a tonic. Such a different thing, and
welcome to my
different
world. Come over
different here. Just sounds so good right now. I want different. So
yes, that is one thing I can say for it too, because you got these indie people, man. They're going to come up with some of these fun, different little storylines that you wouldn't think of before, but they're just suck you in and lean into it. That's what I always say. Like some of them will be cheesy. Just lean into it and you'll have a good time.
Right. Yeah.
Go for whatever ride they're telling you that you're on, and see what you think.
Right. Not everything needs to be of the highest art form. Sometimes it could be a little cheesy, and that's damn fun.
And it's great. Yep.
All right. So I know Super Mega Crash Beyond is on hiatus at the moment. A well-deserved one, because your co-host, Steven, who was a guest host a couple months back, I know that he needs a break. So, since we don't have a podcast to plug, is there anything else you would like to plug? Like, where can people find you if they would like to talk with you? Or I know the show's Discord. Anything? Right.
I was going to say probably the Discord for sure, with Pencil and Paper Productions, because there will be still stuff coming out. So I would definitely recommend checking out like Pencil and Paper Productions. That's Steven's overarching production company, if you will. So everything we do is kind of coming out of that. We did Super Mega Crash Adventures, which is still on the docket to get finished. I know we have, I think did 5 episodes come out? I know for sure it was 4 that got put up. It's, he's the only one doing the animations and everything like that. So it's born of love, but it does take a bit, we don't have a team doing all of it, but it's amazing just to see how far he's come along on that. When we first started, he taught himself, you guys, like just go watching it and just be like, what, he just figured it out? Yes, he just figured it out. And it got better because he's a perfectionist. So each time if he saw one little thing wrong, he would fix it. And we may not notice initially, but I think overall, when you see it in the end, all of the quality that went into it. And you never know. We might come back every once in a while just to chat about some nonsense or tomfoolery that's going on at the time. But, and unfortunately, I kind of took myself off of a lot of socials. I shouldn't say unfortunately. Fortunately for me, needed that break. But I am on Blue Sky, Laceya Finley at bluesky.com, whatever the whole thing is. I apologize. It's long, so I don't know if I can remember all of my thing. And then the Discord at Pencil and Paper Productions. We're pretty active. We're a small group, but we're fun. And we chat all the time. And we talk about games and movies and horror films and whatever you want. Just, don't be a jerk. That's all we ask. Come in and have fun. That's pretty much it.
I'm in there as well. It is a fun community to be a part of. If you're interested, it's an open Discord, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yep. So go on and join. You could chat with Laceya, you could chat with me, you could chat with Steven and several other people in there who, a few of them who have their own podcasts. One, I believe, one person is a game designer, an indie designer. So there's a lot of different personalities and different interests in there represented that you can discover. As for me and the show, you can find me on Blue Sky at Streets of Jed. You can find the show on Instagram, First Gen Gamers Pod. Also on Blue Sky under the same name. There you go. Please, thank you for being on. I appreciate it, especially on short notice. Like, this was literally asked on Wednesday, recorded on Saturday.
I'm usually pretty good by the afternoon. I'm one of those, I get all my stuff done in the morning and then, piss away the rest of my day.
Well, I appreciate it. When my co-host said she got sick, I'm like, oh shit, there goes the schedule. 1 month. But you came in, this has been a great episode. I've learned a lot about FMV. I hope that the listeners have learned a lot of FMV, a lot about it. And I hope that they, like me, go out and buy some of these games, support indie developers, and find a new genre of games that I think has criminally been overlooked because of a stupid first impression.
Yeah, it really did. And if you're like me, you're putting food on their table, not some fat cat's back. They run these studios, they started them themselves. It's usually 2-3 people at most doing all this stuff. So it does feed them, or at least feeds that enough of the machine that they can keep doing this thing that they love, so.
Exactly.
$15 for that much. Come on.
Right.
Yeah.
You'll spend more on that on some AAA blockbuster that's no doubt going to make you go, oh, okay.
Yeah, I got to run back there again to get the thing. Okay.
All right. Again, thank you, Laceya. Very much appreciated. It's been a blast. And until next time, everyone.